as we have Nicole make landfall, if it does emerge over into the Gulf of Mexico, perhaps a second one closer to the Big Bend of Florida, we're going to see Nicole eventually ride up Georgia, South Carolina, and then the eastern seaboard. That's going to lead possibly to some more power outages. And then the tornado threat. There is a severe component with every tropical system that we deal with, that rotational wind going to bring about the threat for tornadoes. Heavy rain, a big concern too, as we have maybe through the peninsula and specifically there along the Treasure Coast, the most rain, 3 to 5, perhaps closer to 6-7 inches worth of rain. We're going to watch as Tropical Storm Nicole perhaps becoming a hurricane over those warm waters, making some sort of landfall. We're talking 12, 1 o'clock, those overnight hours, and then Nicole quickly moving over perhaps into the Gulf of Mexico before making that other landfall around the Big Bend of Texas. Something concerning that we need to watch for. And in South Carolina, that threat also going to be there right outside of Charleston. We're looking there in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. In fact, as the clouds are concerned, looks like the sun's trying to peek through. We are expecting several inches of rain. There's going to be a dangerous storm surge there, a storm surge watch in effect. Let's bring in Fox Weather's Will Nunley this afternoon, live there in Charleston. Another update that we're expecting from the Hurricane Center, Will, within maybe the next 15 minutes or so. Those impacts going to be felt soon there in Charleston.
Yeah, and a list of impacts as well, Stephen. You know, this time yesterday we had a sunny, beautiful day, lots of jovial spirits out yesterday, enjoying what was a beautiful day to vacation or get through your workday here in Charleston, but that has changed. We've had a lot more wind today than we saw this time yesterday. Cloud cover, as you were just showing there from our sky cameras as well, and that really is kind of building the sense that the weather is changing and something is coming our direction, and especially as we see what is unfolding there in Florida, and that those incredible live shots from Katie and Nicole, that's really alerting people here as to what is coming, what is the power that this storm really is bringing. So we have numerous school districts all across the Lowcountry and Coastal Empire that are reacting by either canceling school or doing learn from home days, because the consensus is for a lot of these school districts that they don't want people out driving or riding in school buses with the potential for so much flooding. And that is going to be one of the headlines, in addition to the tornadic threat that we're supposed to be seeing here tomorrow afternoon, and tomorrow evening as well. And Thursday is really going to be a big day for impacts here. Thursday night into Friday morning, that's where we're going to be seeing so much of this. And we're going to be out in the Fox Weather Beast on the ground, really showing you what is developing here as those hours unfold. This is also playing into some pretty big commerce disruptions here along the coast, as well as the Georgia ports and both the South Carolina ports saying that they may have to suspend some type of port activity if the weather continues to deteriorate. So right now they're watching that to see if the wind reaches a certain point where they can't safely offload those container ships, and that may happen with what we're seeing here across Florida at this point. But Stephen, still some hours to prepare, some hours to really react and respond here. And from everyone that I've been talking to here around Charleston this afternoon, that's what they're doing.
Would like to avoid is for that at least wind direction to go right into Charleston Bay, but we have to watch, because it appears that as this storm wraps around through the peninsula of Florida and then eventually making maybe another landfall on the panhandle, those winds are going to change, and it makes a huge difference.
I'm Amy Freeze. Welcome to Fox Weather's YouTube page. We have more great videos on the way, so make sure to subscribe to stay updated on all things weather.